Three, two, one.
You ready?
You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network.
Homepost Hunter, happy Back to the Future Day. Hell yes, what a great time to celebrate something good. Because 2020 has sucked. But I've got a review for everyone for Back to the Future, which okay, quick story time. I mean, is my podcast. I saw Back to the Future for the first time when I was 7. I remember watching it with my dad. I want to say it was on TBS. We rented it back when you would have to actually go to a store to rent movies. God, I miss those days. But we rented Back to the Future from Video Choice in Pismo Beach, California, where I grew up. And I remember watching the first one and just going, like, just having that sense of awe, just being like, this is incredible. And it's the first Robert Zemeckis film I ever saw. Robert Zemeckis, it's really interesting going through his filmography. There's so much stuff of his that I love, and then there's just stuff I go, I don't like that at all. So he did that movie Mars Needs Moms, which is one of the worst animated films I've seen in my fucking life. I fucking hate that movie. But then, right a few years later, he does Flight, which is one of my favorite Denzel roles. He, of course, did, Back to the Future Part 2 and Part 3. But he did Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Who Framed Roger Rabbit's one of my favorite movies ever, so that goes a long way with me. I enjoy Forrest Gump. I know some people hate on it, but I really enjoy Forrest Gump. Castaway I fucking love. And then a movie I really don't think he's given enough credit for in Monster House. I think Monster House is fucking awesome, and I actually might review that for the Real Spooky series. But it was really cool to rewatch this, because I haven't watched this probably since I was 18, and with the 4K release, I went ahead and bought the special edition of it because I'm a nerd, and I'm actually sitting here with the hoverboard on my desk, and it's wonderful just be able to go like, oh, finger hoverboard, like it's well worth the money for the special edition. But I was rewatching this, and I couldn't stop thinking about what John Mulaney says about this movie, because the movie, of course, stars Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly. If I ever meet Michael J. Fox, I'm a huge Michael J. Fox fan, not just because of the 3 Back to the Future movies, but I unironically love Teen Wolf. I don't care what anyone says; it's fucking fun. I love Doc Hollywood, and Spin City, I think, is one of the most underrated sitcoms ever. It's right there with News Radio for me. It's one of those sitcoms I just love. They should actually, I wonder if you could buy that. I should buy Spin City. Anyways, but Michael J. Fox, huge fan of his. Christopher Lloyd, he just seemed like that guy in the 90s. He was in everything. I remember they did a remake of what was that? My Favorite Martian for Disney. It's a terrible movie. Don't watch it. But Camp Nowhere alone covers a lot of sins. I think Christopher Lloyd is freaking amazing. And I love that movie. I love Camp Nowhere too. That's another one. And of course, Angels in the Outfield. So, of course, the movie, you guys know the plot. Marty McFly, played by, of course, Michael J. Fox. He is a high schooler. I don't actually know how old Michael J. Fox was at this point, but it was really hard, as I was mentioning, to not think about John Mulaney's bit about Back to the Future while I was watching this, because the thing is, he's so right about this movie, because they just throw you in. Marty and Doc are just friends. They never explain why they're friends, and even when he goes to school, his teacher, the principal of the school, even talks about how, oh, you're hanging out with Doc Brown, it's gonna get you in trouble. Like, it's kind of insane that they're friends, but it works somehow. And the reason why you don't question it is because Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, their chemistry, it's my favorite thing about the movie. Like I love the score. I love how much of an asshole Biff is. I love Crispin Glover. I love Leah Thompson, who, oh my goodness, she looks great in this movie. Sorry for my Tony the Tiger impression, but I mean she looks great now if you haven't seen her recently. But it's so I'm gonna be jumping all over the place on this because first off, how the hell did this get a PG rating? This is PG, and even rewatching it tonight, I'm sitting and watching it, going, okay, there's someone, black people are called spooks in this movie. Just, I mean, granted, it's 1955. I mean, or if you're a Trump voter, you'd probably say that now, but that's used. Biff sexually assaults Marty's mother. It's like, oh my god, like Doc says shit like 3 or 4 times. Like there's a surprising amount going on for a quote PG unquote movie, and that was something I got like a very hard laugh out of, was just how incredibly loose this movie is at points. Again, for a PG film, but Marty, he's going to high school, you know, doing his thing. The principal is such a piece of crap because he's talking about him being late because Marty is going to get his fourth tardy because, you know, he's rambunctious. He's hanging out with that damn Dr. Brown. The principal just talks to him about how he's a slacker. And here's the thing: the principal, first off, he's like grabbing him by the arm, like by the shoulders. Like, first off, he would be fucking fired if you do that shit today. One. Number two, it wasn't enough to just give him his fourth tardy. He had to go ahead and push it just a little more because he's a dick. He even tells him, he's like, you've got an attitude problem, McFly. You're a slacker. He's like, you remind me of your father. He was a slacker too. And then just to push the point home, Mr. Strickland, that's his name. He goes, a McFly has never made anything of themselves in this school. And I was like, wow, first off, huge blanket statement. Number two, like, wow, that's so unnecessary to throw on. It's kind of insane. So Biff, first off, Biff is just, I remember Biff being the first villain. I remember thinking as a kid, someone just needs to throw you in front of like a car. Like, you're a really terrible human being and you shouldn't be around. It's kind of amazing how terrible Biff is. Tom Wilson, who plays Biff, I really don't know anything else he's been in, but oh, that's right, he was in The Informant. I do remember him then, actually. But he's such a dick to Crispin Glover, who plays George McFly. He's having him do his work for him. He even makes a comment, you know, whoa, you almost got me in trouble. You know, what would happen if I turned in my reports of your writing? I'd get fired. You don't want me to get fired, do you? And, you know, George pauses and he goes like, would you? And he's like, no, I guess I wouldn't. And it's insane how bad, just how shitty of a person Biff is. And that will obviously carry over to part 2. But one of the things I love about this movie is the movie almost justifies itself just on this one point. Marty needed to go back in time to see his parents actually fall in love, because they have this whole speech at the dinner table about how they met, and it's the most bleak. It would make you not want to get married. It's such a bleak existence because Lorraine, she's the one who just goes, yeah, like, you'll just know, you know, like, when you're supposed to be with someone, you'll just know. But there's no passion, there's no fire. She just seems just kind of defeated. And it's really actually sad. I was like, wow, like, because when you meet the younger versions of themselves, obviously, you know, the world hasn't beaten them down, but it's cool to see them as their younger selves because they are so full of life and just carefree and just figuring stuff out. And that's clearly not the case here. And that was something I found actually really interesting, was how the younger versions of themselves are. So first off, George is a peeping Tom, which is something I was like, wow, was not expecting that. And but he's a little fucking perv. I was like, wow. And in one of those other moments where I go, okay, this is PG. He's just climbing this tree, spying on this girl uh getting undressed. You're like, wow, this is supposed to be wholesome. This is supposed to be a PG movie. What the hell? But it's interesting to see how the rating system has changed alone. There's a violent, I completely forgot that the time machine, the DeLorean, which in case you guys didn't know, they are remaking like I think a limited amount of DeLoreans, I want to say. So that's gonna be freaking interesting. But Christopher Lloyd being the eccentric inventor, he sells it so well when he's talking about hitting the right speed, 88 miles per hour, to go ahead and go and use the time machine. When he's talking about plutonium, he's like, "Well, the plutonium's what I have to use to go ahead and hit this certain velocity." You're like, "Oh my god!" And you find out, and I completely forgot about this, that he gets the plutonium from some Libyans, but then he instead of giving them like a true like bomb shell casing, he gave them like something just filled with old I think it says watch pieces. And I was like, wow, this is freaking insane. But something I have to give this movie a lot of credit for. And again, I haven't seen this in a while, but what made me so happy rewatching this was it really felt like I was watching this for the first time. I and again, I fully acknowledge part of it is because I'm not watching. None of us are watching movies the same way we used to. With theaters being closed down and everything. It was nice to almost have that summer blockbuster feel again for a minute. It was like, oh my god, I haven't seen it in so long. It feels like the first time, and it's cool, and it's making me go. It's very similar to Blade, which I've reviewed already, and that'll be up here by the before the end of the month. It's so cool to see something with fresh eyes and see how really appreciative we should be for this trilogy. I've mentioned it on the podcast before. It's one of my top 5 trilogies of all time. It's probably my third, probably behind the Captain America trilogy and the John Wick trilogy for me. But I love this trilogy so much, and this film in particular, while I do like the second one more, what I appreciate about this film is that it takes something that is, in theory, I mean, I guess it would be, 20 years ago, the concept of time travel, and now, if in case you haven't seen, we have that article came out that it's a 50% chance we're living in a simulation, which, if that's true, my God, can we please change to the next thing? But the movie really does pick up when Marty goes back in time, but it's about a half hour plus before that happens. And I have to say, the movie is so well paced that I really wasn't feeling the length or anything. I was like, yeah, this is paced really well. This is written by Bob Gale and Neil Canton. Bob Gale wrote what's producer on Used Cars. I really like Used Cars. Really hasn't done much outside the Back to the Future movies. Neil Canton, he was a producer on Get Carter. I like Get Carter. But really nothing else, nothing too often from him either. And this script just paces this film in a way that you're always waiting for the next thing. And it's really kind of refreshing to kind of see that. I mean, obviously films like that, films do that now, but looking through the whole 80s, through the whole 90s lens on this, as far as, how it got its rating and everything, what I found really funny is, first off, the dog, Einstein, they're doing animal testing essentially in this movie, which that in itself, you're just like, wow, okay, that's rather bleak when you take half a step back. This was 85, pardon me, it's a couple years before I was born, shoot. But so there's that whole aspect. 2, I love Michael J. Fox, I love Marty, but at the end of the movie, having him playing rock and roll in implying he's the inspiration for Chuck Berry. It's like, oh God, really? Like you had to do that? It's something in particular. I just wouldn't give me a freaking break. But I really just want to jump through some of the scenes that I love. I love the initial scene because it's a very like alien invader aspect where Marty lands in 1955, crashes through the scarecrow, which made me laugh so hard because I forgot about that, and then crashes in his family's barn, and the dad comes out with a shotgun because he's like, "It's an alien, shoot it!" And I remember going, "Oh my God, that's really intense." Two, I love the sets here. I love the old classy cars. It's funny. I was talking to my friend, talking to Colin actually about how, man, we could not make Back to the Future with an all black cast because black people can't go back in time past like 1970. Honestly, black people might want to go forward in the future at this point if things keep going the way they're going. But I love the old timey sets. I love the old timey cars. I love that he goes to a malt shop with the old jukebox there. Like I 5 cents for a cup of coffee, which, oh my God, if only Starbucks or Dutch Bros was $5 or 5 cents a cup. But I love the atmosphere. I love the way that they use the time period, but yet it never feels like it's just hitting you over the head with it over and over and over again. And a lot of films can get like that. But I really appreciate the way they did this. Seeing a young version of his dad, again, Crispin Glover still, it's so funny because he's such a wuss. He's such a wuss. And as an adult, despite what the podcast might say sometimes, it's beyond frustrating just as a dude, I'll say, to see George just be such a pushover and let Biff just do whatever he wants. It's incredibly frustrating. Yes, it makes the scene at the near the end where he punches them, it makes it more powerful, admittedly, but it's so maddening getting to that point because you're sitting there like, dude, stand up for yourself. Stop letting this guy push you around. But I love the way that they take these little cues from things they said earlier in the film to go ahead and affect and mess with the plot. So Marty, his mom talks about how her dad hit his dad George with his car, and that's how they initially met. So it's interesting that when Marty goes back in time and he goes to town and everything, he ends up getting hit by that car that's supposed to hit his dad, which leads to his mom being incredibly infatuated with him. And I have to say, it is amazing how in an 80s movie she's this thirsty, because holy hell, you want to talk about wanting it. It reminded me of Jane Foster in the first Thor, where Natalie Portman, she's letting Thor know you can have it whenever you want. And oh my God. So first off, the psychological trauma of having your mother try to seduce you, I mean, that's something you'd have to address in counseling. One. Two, it's really interesting how he has to walk this line of like charming his mom, but not charming his mom. It's like, oh my gosh. And I love how she calls him Calvin, because he even asks, why do you keep calling me Calvin? And she's like, well, it's all over your underwear. And I was like, oh shit, okay. Like it's so awkward, but it's great. The movie handles cringe very well. There's a scene later on where Lorraine goes ahead and follows Marty home because Marty punches Biff, and she's like, "Oh my God, he's a dreamboat," and so she follows him home. And I remember going, "Wow, this family." His dad's a peeping Tom. His mom's a stalker. What is Marty going to be when he grows up? What the hell? You're setting this kid up for failure. But I love that. I love how he has to kind of deal with some traumatic shit because, yeah, if any of us went back and visit and saw our parents when they were growing up and figuring shit out. Oh my god, I'm sure that would be something you'd just go, I could have gone the rest of my life without knowing this. Uh, Marty meeting the younger version of Doc. I love that scene of him really trying to convince Doc that he's from the future. He even shows him a picture of him with his driver's license, and Doc writes it off as a really great fake. Which, I mean, deep fake videos are a thing, so I guess that makes sense, all things considered. But I love how Doc, because the one of the things about Doc that's so fun is that he's always talking. He's constantly talking, and yet you can always tell, like you can always feel like Marty's paying attention enough. Like it's really quite interesting because Doc is just rattling all these things off and just speaking super scientific. And while I don't think Marty's catching every single thing, he's definitely intrigued by it, and that alone is keeping his interest, which completely goes against the whole slacker narrative that his asshole teacher or asshole principal is trying to relay to him. I love as well the dialogue as things get more dire, because once he's able to convince Doc asks him, like, hey, have you interacted with anyone else, like, since you've been here? And Marty goes, well, I mean, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but, my mom has the hots for me. And then becomes a mission of him helping his dad get laid, which, oh my god, I never put together like that, but that's what he's doing. Oh man, that's some shit. But I love how Marty and Doc is getting more frantic because he understands the implications. Marty's gets it as Doc is kind of laying it down, but it's interesting how initially none of this ever made Marty go, this could have dire consequences. I would think hanging out with Doc that he would have picked up on something like that, but apparently not. I love too that Biff, apparently people just accept that Biff is an asshole, which I think speaks very terribly about the town itself, because Biff is about to kick Marty's ass in the cafeteria, and the principal comes up and he goes, oh, well, just because you're new, I'm going to go ahead and cut you a break. I'm sitting there going, he's within earshot. Really? You didn't hear that? Like, you're going to just, you're going to just let that go? I completely forgot. I don't know how I did, but I forgot about the chase scene outside of the diner where Marty takes his kid's like crate and essentially turns it into the first skateboard. And I completely forgot about that scene, and I forgot how thrilled I was the first time watching that scene. It was a really cool moment. I was like, wow, this is really badass. I'm remembering, just put in perspective, I haven't watched this in so long. I was thinking more about the references of Back to the Future that Family Guy would make versus the actual film. So it's nice to have the film more within my memory, so now I'll be able to go, oh yeah, the part in the actual film. I love that. I love that chase scene. It's actually one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. I also love the humor in this. Doc and Marty have very fun banter back and forth. The thing that probably made me laugh the hardest, and it's such a simple thing, but when Doc tells Marty, we need to try, he comes up with this way to go ahead and get Marty, in theory, to get back to his own time. And he builds this diorama and he apologizes. He's like, I apologize, I didn't have time to fit it to scale or paint it. And Marty kind of goes like, it's okay. And Doc's like, oh, okay, thanks. And I just found that so incredibly sweet, incredibly endearing. And it really encompasses their whole friendship as a whole, because Marty wants to tell Doc about what happens to him with the Libyans and him getting gunned down. And Doc just doesn't want to hear it because he understands the implication of knowing too much. And it's really interesting to see how their dynamic continues to grow, even when he jumps back in time. The last thing I'm going to bring up is, again, Biff sexually assaults Lorraine. He pins her down in this car, and his henchmen are behind him, and he goes, this isn't, this isn't a peep show. Get out of here. And he slams the door. And I'm sitting there watching. She's screaming for help. And I forgot about that. I was like, wow, that is fucking terrible. Holy crap. How did this only get a PG rating? But I forgot about that. But the other thing I forgot about is how incredibly tense the last scene is as far as the plan that Doc and Marty are trying to execute. I thought that was really well done, and it caught me off guard in the best way. I'm like, yeah, I forgot that the cable gets unplugged and Doc has to basically, use himself to conduct the electricity to close the circuit. I was really impressed with the kind of end arc here of the film. It was really nice to see that. But getting my final thoughts, the score to Alan Silvestri, who of course has done a couple of he came up with the Avengers theme. I completely forgot he scored this, and what a great score this is. It really picks up the Back to the Future theme itself. I love that theme. I think it's a underappreciated theme. So it was actually really cool to hear that again. So well directed. This is so worth getting in 4K. This is a 4K release that it looks cleaned up, but it almost still has that graininess that kind of that the original has that makes you almost love it more. It's hard to explain, but that's what I felt watching this. So I was really happy with how this was done. There's a ton of special features that I haven't had a chance to watch yet, but that will be something I'm doing here over the next couple days. But this was an absolute blast. As far as a film, just because I like the second one more, and I know that might be a hot take for some people, but I'm gonna give this an A. It's not a fan-fucking-tastic, but it is a solid A of a film. Again, I fully admit some of the stuff I saw that kind of jarred me. I was like, oh wow, I forgot this happened. Shit. It's so well written and so well paced that even with those things that have not aged well, it would be a crime to give this anything below an A. So yeah, this is a solid A for me. But everyone, Back to the Future, happy Back to the Future Day. Did you watch any of the films or anything? What's your favorite one of the three? That's a good question. Mine is number 2. And I really like the third one a lot. I don't think the third one gets enough credit, but I'll at some point review the other two. But yeah, which Back to the Future film is your favorite? Let us know what you thought in the comments below. You can go ahead and like our page at The Real Pineapple on Facebook. That's REEL Pineapple. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter at JHunterRealPineapple. You can follow Scott on Twitter at Nearman1st. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Go ahead and rate us 5 stars. You can go and find us on SoundCloud, Apple and Google Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music and Spotify at The Real Pineapple. Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Please stay safe out there. Don't forget to vote, wear a mask. We will have reviews up this weekend for The Witches, for Blade and Blade 2, as well as probably review Scream too for the Real Spooky series. So we've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Everyone, please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon.